Howdy Goons, I recently got asked why I call you all Goons. I'm an evil overlord and I need henchmen. Goons is gender neutral, so you're all Goons. Now don't complain. Go shake down some people for me. It's been a while since I've talked about a new handheld and my pockets are a little light. For now you're gonna have to settle with just 10 more games that I beat this year. This is where things are going to get a little longer and more interesting. A lot of the games in this video I've reviewed already, so I'll be showing videos from those reviews, but shortened. You can find links to the full versions in the description. Panzer Dragoon Mini, 3 hours. I didn't know if I wanted to include the full review or not. It's pretty lengthy, so I'll just do a short version of it. Here's an edited down version of the full review.
So let's buy our copy of Panzer Dragoon. Why is it $800? Right. It was released at the end of the Game Gear's life cycle. They didn't print many copies, and it never came to the US. So I guess we're going to the emulation zone. Clicking Game Start brings us to the dragon selection screen. We have blue, red, and black dragons, one for each gender, red for girls, blue for boys, and black for... You cannot fathom the depths of the identity that is my soul, the void that is my mind, or they're non-binary. Each one of them has height, width, and weight stats, and they don't matter. They're just for flavor. The manual goes into more detail about the dragons and their differences. Blue Dragon is your all-rounder. They have average abilities, high movement speed, and fast primary fire, making it easy to defeat enemies. You probably could have guessed that. Red Dragon is for experienced players. They're a high damage dragon but with a slow movement speed, and they recover less gauge between stage clears. Gauge is just your HP bar, so red recovers less health when finishing a stage. Again, you also probably could have guessed most of that based off of the color. Black Dragon focuses on lock-on attacks, having average damage on their primary fire, and also recovers a large amount of gauge. The Black Dragon is your beginner dragon. Since lock-on shots are unlimited, Black Dragon really can be easy mode at times, but it really struggles in boss fights. When you pick your dragon, the game starts and you're playing in third person. The camera is behind your dragon of choice, and you're flying forward with enemies moving towards you. This might seem minor, but you'll see why I specifically mentioned the camera angle. This bottom half of the screen is your play area. You can move anywhere within this lower box. The top box is where the enemies are. The rest of the game is really as simple as mash either button 1 or 2 to do your primary fire, and hold either down to begin tracking for lock-on. Move your cursor over enemies to mark them, and then let go of it to blast them. There is no attack animation for the lock-on, so the enemies either explode or nothing happens. Now, the reason I specified the way the stage moves is because the episodes are done in sections. The first section is the flying forward section, but after the enemies have either died or disappeared, the camera changes perspective. The camera changes to a side view of your dragon, and now the stage moves right to left. The first part of the stage is the normal mode, then side view is boss mode. During this phase, we fight large mini-bosses or full-blown bosses. The controls stay the same regardless, so you don't have to worry. Since the Game Gear is 8-bit, there was no way that they were going to be able to do 3D. Not true 3D. The sprites are all 2D as well, and they've done a pretty good job on it considering it's 8-bit. It doesn't look 8-bit. The Game Gear was pretty good about that. So this is a pretty good middle ground since they're not able to do 3D. This is really just a demake of Panzer Dragoon, and considering the limitations the Game Gear has, well, even then it's still not great, but it's definitely unique. The first boss is a mini-boss, and it kind of lazily glides left and right, shooting orbs at you. You can shoot the orbs and destroy them to prevent getting hit. It's the ones with the little yellowy crag things on them. You'll easily dispatch the giant base, no problem. After that, it just goes back to normal mode, and then the final boss for that episode, so really only the bosses are worth mentioning. The final boss for the first stage is really just more of the same thing. Another airship, and it uses the same tactics. Actually kind of stays still. For these bosses, it's much easier to just spam fire than to lock on, since you can destroy the shots easily. I don't really have any strats for you other than to spam and fly in like a figure 8 or a circle. Later on, I started doing this little J-shaped strat, and that worked pretty well. I did make sure to translate the manual with Google as well to try and read the tips section, and well, it's not helpful, but it's funny. Beating the boss rewards you with a password to continue where you left off and a bit of health. Then it's on to stage 2. The scenery does change a little bit. We've been upgraded from the void to plains with mountains and clouds. Before we had those birds that didn't really do anything. I think there's just supposed to be dragons. And then we had these flying puckered anuses that would shoot at me. Now we have these Roombas that shoot, and missiles that, when impacting with the floor, will fire a single shot, and then otherwise they do nothing. At this point, I noticed that a lot of the enemies will do their thing and then just go off screen. Then the next enemy spawns. So the thought crawled into my head, I don't actually have to kill anything outside of boss fights, do I? I decided to not shoot anymore and just focus on dodging. The answer to my question is no. I don't have to kill anything in normal stages. It just makes the stages go faster. and even then just a few seconds faster. The mid-boss for this one mixes it up. But don't worry, I'm still fighting the same exact flying fortress from the first mid-boss. But now the screen changes twice. The first one is a side view where it plays the same, but once the boss drifts off screen, we go back to a back shot. And I love back shots, especially dragon back shots. Anyway, nothing changes with the approach, spam and avoid boulders. The final boss for stage 2 is Mobile Tower, and it's kind of looks like the AT-AT from Star Wars if it was like stretched. This time it's side views that go back and forth. When the tower is on your right, it fires shots that can't be destroyed. When it's on your left, it fires destructible shots. The left side is the easiest one to deal with because all the shots come out of its center eye, and it's always the same path, so you can just stay still and shoot right into the center, no problem. Since the boss doesn't move outside of the screen hops, it's an absolute cakewalk. Stage 3 puts us on a nice little desert. This stage gives us some buggies that dive bomb us, then side views for some wormy things that don't fight back and a handful of ships that shoot at us. At this point, I gave up on shooting. The only reason to shoot is to kill enemies before they can hit you, but if you can dodge them, they won't hit you anyway. The shots in normal sections aren't destructible, so there isn't a need to shoot. I really only shoot things that shoot rapidly or stay on screen for long amounts of time. Mini-boss 3 is the Flying Fortress again. I love this guy. And it works the same exact as it has this whole time. You get to shoot behind you, a little bit, but nothing game-changing. And this is the only point, I think, where you actually shoot behind you. Then it's a normal stage again, gives us the tower-like things that require 3 lock-ons to die, and it's 3 lock-ons regardless of the character, although I didn't play this far with the Black Dragon, so maybe it's not. I played through the game 2.5 times. I think that's pretty good. And some fast-moving UFO-like things. For the final boss, we have a big dragon that fires lots of regular shots and quite a few destructible shots. The strat here doesn't change. Figure 8s and spam. It was quite tanky, and it did almost kill me, but I am still just shooting zesty JPEGs. The big dragon is pretty cool, but the big dragon also fires the most out of all the bosses that I fought, and this is one that I struggle to beat with more than half health, even on easy. So there is some challenge, but it's just with that one specific boss, and he never does get close to actually killing me. He just always gets me below the halfway point. 2 more stages to go, and we're back on the plains, but with trees now. I already have my opinion on this game by this point, and I don't think the 2 extra stages are going to change my mind. But I'm still playing this for you all, so you can see the whole game, so you don't get curious and try to play it yourself. So let's put on my big chinchilla pants and play 2 more stages of doing nothing. Normal section. New enemies are all the same dude that just shoot at you, but in different costumes. Some are on the ground now. Mid-boss is, you guessed it, Flying Fortress again. Only thing different is it has even more shots. Final boss is a giant robot dog thing. It barely fires, so just spam and focus on deleting the shots that can be destroyed. Absolute snooze fest. This is really the only enemy that will actually like put your aiming to the limit because it's constantly moving and there is some muzzle velocity on your bullets. It does have travel, so you do have to aim ahead sometimes with this one, but you can adjust pretty quickly. Now for the finale, the final stage. The stage to change my opinions or make me pass out. We're in space, or under a night sky now. This stage is 4 waves of enemies that don't fight back, broken up by every boss that we fought except the mobile tower. Each boss defeated restores our health, so if you were able to defeat them before, you can do it again. The true final boss is a giant squid-like thing, and when fighting it, on side views, you can stay still and shoot as long as you aren't on the edges of the screen. When it comes at you from the front, it opens up its leggy things, and it looks like a big flower before it fires a dozen shots at you. Just keep spamming. In this sense, since the boss fights are all fought with spam shots, the red dragon might actually be easier to beat the game with, and I confirmed this. My win time is about like 2-3 minutes faster on the red dragon. Since you won't be shooting on the main stages, your bad lock-on doesn't matter. When you beat the final boss, you get a win screen that gives you a congratulations. Thanks, it's been terrible. And then I'm kicked back to the main menu and we can go at it again. All in all, it takes about 10-15 minutes to beat. Time for my opinions, I guess. The devs didn't really try all that hard, so why should I? I went into this game with an open mind. It's cute, and I wanted to give it the benefit of the doubt, but this game is a cheap cash grab that definitely doesn't warrant its rarity. An excellent reminder that just because it's rare doesn't mean it's good. The devs really understood the aesthetic and the idea of the game, but they clearly don't understand what made the original so good. Not including the original team in this game's development was a huge, unforgivable mistake. But I think due to the limitations of the Game Gear, this was never going to be a good game, so I guess at least they didn't waste their time. While Panzer Dragoon Mini is technically kind of cool and impressive, it's still not a good game. It's impressive what they could do with the limitations, but I can't recommend this to anyone. As a game, it's committed the ultimate one true sin. It's boring. The one good thing I can say about it is, it's an easy 100% on retro achievements. So what happens when you make Panzer Dragoon cute? It becomes a flop, I guess.
Journey to the Savage Planet, 7 hours. I heard that the sequel to this title was coming out, and around this time I wanted to clear out my Epic Games library. Don't worry, I don't use Epic to buy games, only crazy people do that. I only use Epic for freebies. Many of the games on the list have been Epic freebies already, like Outer Worlds and Control. Outer Worlds I bought on the PS4 already, and I didn't have the DLC. The Epic freebie had Spacer's Choice Edition, so I played all the DLC that way. I was interested in Savage Planet, though, because it has that Adult Swim game kind of funk. I was very right about catching those kinds of vibes, too, because it contains a lot of millennial-style humor while mixing in a bunch of FMV ads and cutscenes, creating an interesting yet humorous mixed-media sort of experience. The game itself starts out a little railroady, but eventually opens up, resulting in a pretty short FPS Metroid-like experience. While I did find it to be pretty funny, I did find that the humor was working as a mask, because without the context and the humorous setting, the game is kind of just like the original Dead Space. You're just going point A, pressing a button, point B, pressing a button, point C, pressing a button. The exploration was a little lacking for me. It's a short game though, and I like short games. The boss fight should be the highlight of the game, but past the first one, they're all just giant immobile monoliths with weak spots. It's also fully co-op, but as is the case with most platforming games, it's going to be less fun for one of the players as they have to wait for one of their less skilled friends to struggle through the platforming sequences. The entire game is full of them too. I would say it's much more enjoyable if you treat it as a movie with some gameplay. It's a great looking game, funny and enjoyable, but I wouldn't expect too much from it. It's not, a deep experience. It never has the time to reach that point, which I guess is fine if you're looking for that. Monster Hunter World, 20 hours. I played this after I played a lot of Rise, and returning to World felt like returning to Freedom Unite after playing World. It felt so much slower by comparison, and the whole time I was wishing I was playing Rise. On one hand, I really liked the speed of Rise, but on the other, I think Monster Hunter was better before all of the modernizations. As they made the series easier, it feels less like monster hunting. I think convenience and removing clunkiness kills the hunting aspect, and it's more of just an action game now. But I do like that too. Anyway, World is definitely better than its predecessors in a lot of ways, like they removed paintball tracking and replaced it with glowflies. It used to be you'd have to encounter the monster, hit it with a paintball, then it would appear on the map for everybody. With glowflies, you'd find tracks, mud, scrapes, and other bodily fluids, and you'd use that to fill out your tracking meter for the species. Once maxed, you won't need to use the tracking features anymore. While this aspect is great, and I love the tracking, and it makes it so much more of a hunting experience, they did ruin some other aspects of the Monster Hunter game series. Since moving to the model where they include massive DLC releases, they've started including a head start set of armor and weapons. These entirely ruin the main gameplay experience and only serve to hold your hand throughout the entire game so you can get to that DLC as fast as possible. That way you're more likely to swipe that credit card one last time before the real difficulty kicks in and you're totally unprepared. This armor is of course optional, but if they included this set, why wouldn't they just provide a story skip option instead? Let me explain how this works a little bit. So if you played World at launch, you would hunt monsters and collect parts, then build your own equipment. Each armor and weapon has its own stats and passive effects, and you were encouraged to fight monsters multiple times to get the parts needed to build or upgrade a set so that you stood a better chance against future monsters. Now with the Defender set, you are entirely robbing yourself of that Monster Hunter experience. You are not playing the real game. The Defenders always have the max value for the point in the story that you are, and that's a little ahead of whatever you would have crafted. So you're never expected to fight a monster more than once. The combat is never challenging with this set either. I wanted to play without using the Defender set, but none of my hostages did. But I didn't want to hold everyone else back by making them wait for me to grind. We never bought the DLC, so this expedited experience was just pointless. Just to give you an idea of how much time this set saves, how long to beat lists World as being 46 hours long. We beat it in 20. People who use this set are robbing themselves of the Monster Hunter experience, and they don't even know it because for many, this was their first Monster Hunter game. Why does Capcom do this? Why do they want me to hate the game? Are they really making that much with this armor system through DLC sales? And if they are, why not just add a story skip option instead? I'd rather them do that because then, the hostages wouldn't have chosen to use the armor set. They would have just played the game normally because the armor wouldn't have been an option. But yeah, there's issues with the co-op experience as well. Now, instead of having solo story and co-op story separate, they're weirdly mixed together. Players wishing to play this co-op will find themselves having to go on their own missions, each individually, and encounter the the major monsters for the first time. Then they'll all quit, and then they'll all queue together to fight it for real. It does this for every story-important fight, and I think at least a fifth of our playtime was spent watching these sequences and playing these sequences. Rise handles it so much better, but so did the games before World by having single player separate from co-op. It was really cool seeing all my favorite monsters in HD, but this is an experience you couldn't pay me to return to. Warioware Inc. Mega Microgames, 3 hours. I know most people probably know about Warioware, but in case you don't, the premise is simple. Each character has a weird problem to solve, and you solve it for them by playing mini-games, but these mini-games are smaller than mini-games. They're micro-games, each being able to be finished in less than 5 seconds. Once you finish one, you immediately move on to the next one, and the next one, continuing until you beat the amount needed to beat the stage. Unless you're playing after the first time, then it's endless. Every microgame is different from the last, and they have a very unique and Japanese sense of humor to them. Each stage is also based on a different character who has different themes for their games. It's bright, silly, gross, and most importantly, funny. It's one of my favorite games, and I still play it frequently to this day. Originally, I beat it on the Wii U while playing it with one of my hostages, and the final stage is pretty hard. I use it now mostly to test latency and controls on retro handhelds because as you go, the game gets faster and faster and requires better timing and precision. In general, I think this is such a good game because Nintendo understood the task of it being a portable game. It can be played in 5-minute bursts. It has autosaves, it pauses, and is very pick up and play. It's peak GBA, but it was also peak GameCube, and every other system that it was on. It's not the best in the series, but it is very good. If you never played a WarioWare, it's a must play. The only one I don't like is Get It Together. Unfortunately, many of these games are difficult to emulate as they relied on hardware gimmicks like Twisted needs an accelerometer. The Wii ones need Wii remotes and stuff like that. Even playing Switch 1's Move It isn't fully possible on the Switch 2 because they removed the IR sensor at the bottom of the Switch 2 Joy-Con. So you need to pull out your Switch 1 Joy-Con just to play. That's going to go super well a decade from now when no one has their Switch 1 anymore. WarioWare Get It Together, 4 hours. Okay, I let the cat out of the bag on this one. You already know I don't like it, so here's why. Typically in microgames, you would press a button and it would cause a direct reaction in the game. And Get It Together, they have you control a character who is on the minigame screen. You use that little dude to activate the various aspects of the minigame. Each character also moves in a unique pattern and can only interact in certain ways. Wario charges. 18-volt can only move by shooting a ring, which he'll grapple to. Spits and Dribble can only shoot left or right, and that direction depends on which of the two you chose. So you're not only adding a middleman in a precision time-based game, you're expected to approach these games in a way unique to each character. So say you have a guy's arm with an apple in it and you're trying to get it up to his mouth so that he can eat it. In a normal WarioWare game, you might lift the Wii remote to your face, mimicking that action, or press a direction or tap A. In Get It Together, you'd have to lift the arm to the mouth using your little character, but you also have 5 seconds to do so. It's fun, but when you lose, you often feel like it's because of the middleman, which doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel skill-based. It feels like I just got the one character who couldn't do it efficiently. It's just an unneeded level of separation that creates a dissonance between the player and the game, while still expecting good timing and precision. That said, it's still WarioWare, and even a bad WarioWare is still fun. Elden Ring, Night Rain, 62 hours. We beat it much sooner than that. Typically I hate it when they take games and turn them into live service games, but they've been pretty good about this one. In Night Rain, you assume the role of a character who essentially functions as a class with unique abilities and equipment that they excel with. You'll go into a big map and you'll have a time limit to get geared up. It's kind of like an extraction shooter, but no PvP. As you play, the night comes in around you, which is like the Fortnite storm. As you go, you'll collect weapons and souls, which you can use to level up. Once the ring fully closes, you fight a boss, and if you win, the next day begins, and you do it again. On the final day, you fight the real boss, who is often pretty dang tough. It took a while just for me and the hostages to beat the first run, but once you understand how the game works and how it wants you to play, it's pretty easy. Unfortunately, the way it wants you to play doesn't leave much room for variation, as you're eventually going to learn a set route that works for your team, and you will use that every run. It's still possible to lose even if you follow that run perfectly. Even 60 hours in, we'll still occasionally lose to bosses we've dominated in the past. The characters are well designed, with not much in terms of transferable skill between them. On one hand, this means that the characters are truly unique. On the other, that means you'll pick a favorite and not want to change. It's a decent roguelite experience. I just wish I felt more noticeable improvement from run to run. I kind of wish there were more RPG elements. I can't recommend it for most people just because of the difficulty. I played every From Software game since Dark Souls 2, and I did it solo, and I didn't think those games were very hard at all. This one is actually kind of hard. Mario Kart World, 10 hours. What's different? The biggest difference between World and the other prior Mario Karts is the size of everything. The entire world and tracks and courses are significantly larger. There is a higher player limit of 24 players for better and worse, wider tracks, longer tracks, bigger character roster, more modes, more items, and more things you can do. The theme for this entry is just bigger and better. But is that necessarily true? Is it better? Well, kinda not. One of the big concerns players had for this entry was that by having courses that are wider and longer, is that the courses would be less twisty as consequence. By being less twisty, that means less fun to them. As someone who doesn't like racer games outside of Kirby Air Ride, I haven't had this much fun with a Mario Kart game since Double Dash. The big worlds result in longer stages, meaning there is more of a back and forth between players. You're going to constantly be on the edge as you're having to fight for your life more. More players means more chances of bullet bills, lightning, and blue shells. Even getting a massive lead can easily be struck down at any moment. I personally enjoy it quite a bit. The challenge here doesn't come from twists and turns, but rather the endurance of running a marathon and your fellow players. There are also new forms of movement to mix things up. Keep an eye out for rails to grind on and walls to ride. These bigger stages fit very nicely into the open world, giving it a natural feel for every course. Characters and carts. World has the biggest character roster of the series so far. There are 24 main characters, lots of minor characters, and each main character unlocks an additional 1 to 10 costumes. I wouldn't count the costumes as additional characters, but the character menu lists each one separately, so I guess I will. I prefer if you were able to select a character then their costume, but they're all on the same menu. If you don't have things sorted, it can be very annoying to find a particular skin. It's actually hard to know for sure just how many characters are in this game, as not all of them are listed on the character menu. As for carts, we have a lot of variety but no customization outside the stickers. They all still have their own stats, and you'll definitely end up with a favorite. Unlocking everything is very easy. Mains are unlocked through playing through cups. You don't even need to take first. Getting secondary characters are all unlocked through being hit by Kamek's magic item, and it's random which one you get. Then unlocking costumes for mains involves eating the fast food power-ups that you find inside the stages at each Yoshi's restaurant. Carts are unlocked every 100 coins you collect at random. If you play every Grand Prix 3 times, you should have everything unlocked, so it is just a few hours of gameplay to unlock everything if you're being very intentional about it, until you get to the skins. The unlock system is also very natural and doesn't require any skill from the player. Literally anybody can unlock everything in this game, so you get a constant steady flow that keeps you engaged. These can also be unlocked in any mode aside from the main characters. But unlocking skins is an absolute snooze fest. Once you've finished all the races, you might find yourself getting bored. The Switch 2 doesn't have that many games out yet, so you're going to feel like you have to play this one to 100%. I recommend against doing that, because you're gonna get yourself very burnt out on the game. While you can technically get all the costumes through normal play, you're going to have to give in and play free roam and manually unlock the rest at some point. This is a boring and long process. You'll pick a character, go into free roam, go to Shy Guy Bazaar, eat the 5 foods that are there, then you'll go to Peach Stadium to get the donuts and cakes, then Boo Cinema for the popcorn, Moo Moo Farms for the dairy item, and finally Cheap Cheap Falls to get the Japanese food items. The checklist is shorter for the characters with less skins. The less skins a character has, the fewer items you need to look for. But characters like Mario, Luigi, and Peach all have like 8 or more skins. Many of them can only be unlocked with a specific food type. Even when using a guide, you can expect the process of unlocking every skin to take 3 or more hours, even if you're efficient about it. In total, there are over 100 characters and skins, and once you have 3 pages of baby characters and skins, you're going to wish the skins were selected in a different way. They should have made it so that you select a character, then their skins, and press a button while hovering over them. This skin unlocking process is probably the worst part of the game. It'd be better if the skins were more different, but the majority of characters all share the same kinds of skins, the same handful of skins. The worst part for me, though, is knowing that monster characters like Charge and Chucks are unlocked completely at random and you have no control over unlocking them. So even once I finish getting all of the skins, I'll have to keep racing and hope I get hit by the thing that I need and hope it randomly selects the one that I need. While it's technically easier to unlock things, it's not fun to seek them out. Grand Prix. This is the main race mode and you'll play through every cup at least once. Each cup consists of 4 courses, and after placing top 3 on the first 7 cups, you'll unlock the special cup. Then you'll have every course unlocked. Each of the courses exist in the world of Mario Kart World and are interconnected in some way. This doesn't matter so much here, but it's cool because it sort of builds a world and universe within the game. These are like real locations that matter and have a story. Grand Prix comes in the usual 50, 100, and 150cc versions. There isn't much to say besides it's the mode you're most familiar with and you're probably going to play the most. There's an interesting mix of lap-based maps as well as long stretches of highways. The courses are all beautiful and highly detailed, and if you wanted to visit them in free roam, you can do that. You can just go drive to the location and see them. They exist within the world. So if you want to get a closer look at some stuff, you can. It's pretty neat from a lore standpoint, at least. And some environments like the Japanese-themed Cheap Cheap Falls are very neat up close. And you can drive outside of the main course, of course, so you can check out some other details that you missed up close. On one hand, I very much like these longer courses, but in the Grand Prix sense, I think that they are too long for a Grand Prix. I think they should have gone with shorter, smaller maps for the Grand Prix mode, but that would have required them changing how these maps are set up greatly, and I can see why they just stuck with long, wide courses for everything. Knockout Tour. This is an elimination-based game mode with a focus on endurance play. Once again, there are 8 cups with 3 CC modes, but in each cup is 6 maps that are all interconnected to each other in one big strip, and you will play that strip from the beginning all the way to the end with no loading screens. Each course's exit eliminates the last 4 remaining players until the final 4 characters remain. It's a very fun and different mode, and the longer the race goes on for, the more skill-based it becomes. Since the bottom 4 is eliminated with each course, you're less and less likely of opponents getting clutch items like blue shells. By the time you're on the final 2 courses, you shouldn't see any blue shells at all. I like the mode, but like I said, it's about endurance, and it is a long haul. This mode is so good because different carts perform different depending on how far you are in. High acceleration carts, for example, will find a very early lead, but higher top speed cars do better in the latter half because you don't have to worry about recovering from shells as much. But this mode is a problem for players that aren't as good. If you have a friend who isn't very good at the game, they're going to get eliminated early, and that means that they're going to have to watch you play between the next 3 to 5 courses. That's not very fun for them. So I think you'll be playing mostly Grand Prix mode. On one hand, I do think the longer courses aren't very entertaining in the long run. It's more the back and forth between the players that I find interesting there, but Knockout Tour couldn't be done on smaller maps. It has to be these long maps for this to work, so I'm kind of torn. On one hand, the long maps are less fun than the older maps, but on the other hand, Knockout Tour only works because of the long maps, and I really like Knockout Tour. Free roam mode. This final mode is a bit of a controversial one. Some were speculating that it would be like GTA. It isn't. There isn't a way for you to even get off your cart, and I tried every button. Some were also worried that this would be the main focus of the game. It isn't. Free roam isn't even on the game mode's menu. You have to go all the way back to the main menu and then press plus. That doesn't mean that there isn't anything to do though. There are quests you can find in the world by hitting P switches. In one quest, I was collecting blue coins as fast as possible, and in another, I was trying to drive my cart into the back of a moving semi. Then I got to drive the semi at top speed, barreling through anything in my way. This mode also lets you explore all the maps in the world in their home locales. You can use this to see all the little details at your own leisure, or practice. If you want to unlock all the costumes easily, you can fast travel to get to the specific locations where regional foods are at. So if you want Birdo's sundress outfit, you can go to Cheap Cheap Falls and wait for some taiyaki or sushi to show up. Free roam mode also features a camera mode, which is great for content creators looking to get that next thumbnail, or artists who want to get a close-up of their favorite obsession. It features posing, expressions, frames, and more. This isn't a mode that I played much, but it's cool that it's an option. If you're waiting for friends to get on, but you don't have the time for a race, then free roam is the perfect option to kill time, while still unlocking stuff. You can also find secrets while exploring in free roam. There are panels that, if you can find them, will give you a sticker, but other than that, there isn't a real reason to go looking for them. Just another thing to check off your completionist list. But that's kind of it in terms of actual content for the game. To get the most value out of the game, you're going to want to get some friends together to play multiplayer or the online modes, which I did not play the online modes. Like I said in the beginning though, there isn't much to say about this. It is just Mario Kart. It's a Mario Kart with more of everything, and I do think that's pretty good. My only complaint is that one day I'd like to see a story mode or a campaign for the series, or maybe an RPG mode of some sort of single player thing outside of just the basic race modes. Nothing crazy, just a mode where I can customize my vehicle, race my stats, the kart stats, and race in different challenges and races with those upgrades. I don't want it to be the main mode, but it'd be a good long haul change of pace for those who are tired of the basic race modes. The new movement methods aren't revolutionary, and the larger maps are a bit more relaxed, but if you've been wanting something different to mix it up, there is a good bit of new here to dig through. I don't know if I should score it or not. I don't think it's worth $80 unless you're going to play this a lot in multiplayer, or unless you really like Mario Kart. As a $50 pack-in title, it's a good deal. It is definitely not a system seller. I'd say 7 out of 10. We'll have to see what they do for future content updates. The world has already been designed, so outside of new characters, I don't know how they're going to add more stuff. Cat's Cosmic Atlas.
This is one that I was very flip-floppy on. On one hand, it's a cute, innocent game that is an interesting learning tool for kids interested in stars, constellations, and planets. On the other hand, it greatly abuses manipulative sales tactics and is one of the worst abusers on the Switch eShop. Gameplay-wise, Cat's Cosmic Atlas is a simple little game where you play an anthropomorphic cat as they explore the stars and planets in a storybook-stylized side-scrolling game. You'll walk through two massive galleries full of constellations from the northern and southern hemispheres. Yeah, the southern hemisphere has its own constellations. That's probably news to some of you out there like it was to me. You'll get to explore the solar system with this cute little kitty and then read about the stars. This isn't much of a game, as you can see. It's a learning game. When Cat walks up to a constellation, it plays an animation drawing out the constellation. Thankfully, you can fast forward through this. Then the shape appears and does an animation with a sound effect. Lastly, it shows a bunch of text and some doodles where it tells you all about the constellation. So it's not really a game so much as it's a book with gameplay. Even then, the gameplay is just walking. Exploring the solar system works very similarly, but you'll instead float through space, and you'll collect achievements throughout the whole experience. I wouldn't really call this a game though, and in terms of learning games, it ranks pretty low. This isn't Freddy Fish or Pajama Sam from our youths. I don't really know who this game is for either. The kids interested in this storybook game idea would be very young, around 5 to 10, but the reading level to understand it would be higher. Maybe younger kids could enjoy this with a parent's help. It is a cute game idea, but I don't see many kids having their attention held by this unless they had a special interest in mythology, stars, or planets. It's an interesting and harmless enough game, but it saves its manipulation and shady business for the eShop. The Cat's Cosmic Atlas is normally a $12 game on Steam. On Switch, it sells for $20 and frequently goes on sales. This makes it look like it's a really good deal. A better sale than it would typically be if Steam were to do the same kind of sale. Going from $20 to just $2 means it looks like it's 90% off. This makes it look like a really good deal on the Nintendo eShop sales, and so people pick it up. But unlike other games that do this, there is some substance here. So I guess there's a good reason for it, but it does get worse. CCA has 3 free DLCs, but has 7 bundles, and these bundles have different combinations of the free DLC within them and no additional content. The main game is $2 on sale, then these bundles are $20 a piece and not on sale. Someone might buy the bundle thinking, wow, $20 for the Ultimate Edition and I get all of its DLC? That's a pretty good deal. In actuality, they just paid for 3 free DLCs. They do this for a few reasons. First, the low sale means that they're at the top of the page when you organize price from low to high. People will drop $2 on a random experience, and if they hate it, well, it was only $2. Second, the game has 3 free DLC, which puts them high up on the free game searches. Nintendo still doesn't let the eShop filter out DLC when doing searches for free games. Third, the 7 editions take up more space in other searches. Then finally, the special editions trick parents into getting scammed. This is really scummy and absolutely abuses the eShop, and is why the eShop has such a negative name. Even if it was the best game ever, I can't encourage this kind of abuse and manipulation. They've no doubt scammed some people doing this. It takes this honest and friendly game and turns it into a scam. I don't think this game is great to begin with, but some folks in the chat said it seemed like something kids would like. But it's hard for me to recommend it when it abuses the eShop so badly and lowers the quality of the eShop with its scams and manipulation. Cat's Cosmic Atlas is a very cute game and is incredibly artistic and well executed for what it's trying to do. I don't see kids being very entertained or engrossed in this. I can't see a kid trying to complete this or explore the entire game. Like me, they'll likely only open it up for an hour or so, check out a little bit of everything, then get bored and leave. I think the artist's talents would be better used in making a children's book of their own. Any goodwill this game had, though, from me, with its appearance and presentation, is entirely lost with its shady marketing. So that's a big fat bust for me.
Peak, 25 hours. This is one of those games that can't technically be beaten again, but I have seen the credits and I am able to reliably finish runs with my hostages. I've seen all of the content to date too, as we continue to play it whenever a new update is out. Peak is a survival game where you and 3 friends are stranded on a deserted island. Your only chance of rescue is to climb to the peak. As you go, you'll be climbing, jumping, and managing your grip meter. Time takes a toll on all of us though, as we get more hungry and nature fights back through wildlife, poisons, and Fred shooting you full of enough tranquilizers to take down a Baldwin. Throughout this adventure, you'll have to fight the elements like frosty, windswept tundras, scalding hot calderas, devious deserts, and dense tropical jungles. When you finally reach the top of the volcano, you'll grab a flare, shoot it off, and you're saved. But in your hour-and-a-half run, what horrible things did you have to do to survive? What horrible things did you have to bear witness to? Only you and the island knows that. Sunseed Island, 10 hours. Howdy Goons, quick disclaimer, this game was sent to me by the developer for the purpose of making videos about it. Don't worry, being sent a game has never stopped me from being honest about it. Sunseed Island feels like a cash grab, like someone tried to make a bare bones version of a game series that is known for being quite large. This game is the absolute most basic version of a homesteading game that you can get. I call this genre homesteading because it's easier to define than the nebulous concept of cozy game. Homesteading games are basically any game where the point of it is to develop your land, home, farm, and relationships. This fits the definition of homesteading, which is about living a lifestyle of self-sufficiency. But cozy is faster, so what can you do? There are several reasons why I think this is a cash grab, and I'll go over it, but one big indicator is that the game is only available on the Switch. The Switch doesn't have a way to review or rate games, so if a game is bad, there isn't a way to leave feedback. This makes the Switch storefront the perfect place for scams and cash grabs. This isn't the only aspect of the Switch storefront that they take advantage of. The game has been on sale for almost a month for 80% off. They do this to get to the top of the low to high sorting for prices. So people think it's a really good deal. It is a good deal if you like what's here, but to me, this isn't a game that's normally $10 on sale for $2. It's just a $2 game, and that's fine, but you should be honest about it. The other issue is that this has 5 free DLC. Normally free DLC is perfectly fine, but these are being used to take advantage of the Switch's eShop's search functions. Note that all of these DLC could easily be one bundle. There isn't a reason anyone would want to play only one of these. These didn't even have to be DLC. These could have been put in an update, but they have them as 5 separate things to increase the odds of being discovered in searches. These aren't DLC, these are ads, and by extension, they're contributing to the decline of the quality of the eShop. Then the game also has a bundle, which is just the game plus these free DLC. These 3 things are very common manipulative practices on the storefront and are huge red flags. They are not on other platforms because other platforms wouldn't enable this. These 3 DLC packs also all contain free DLC. None of them include the paid DLC. And because they all include the free DLC, if one of them go on sale, they should all go on sale, because there's a chance that someone will buy one of these other editions thinking that they're getting more than the others. So they're all free DLC. So like, why should the others be a different price unless you're intentionally trying to get people to buy the other ones thinking they're getting a better deal when it's actually filled with free DLC? You're trying to scam people out of their money. So maybe the original developer for this doesn't like this, doesn't agree with this. That's the fact. Your publisher, the publisher of this game, is trying to scam people and is also trying to exploit the Switch eShop and make it worse for everybody. I also found out that this publisher is the same publisher as Cat's Cosmic Atlas, which also does these same practices. I really don't like it when companies do this because it makes the Switch eShop harder for everyone to use. It scams people without them ever knowing it, and just makes it harder to search and find things by overpopulating the list with DLC that doesn't need to exist. This could have been part of the main game. It could have been included in the game through an update. It could have been a single DLC, but no, they chose to separate it into 5 different DLCs, 3 of which both start with the same first word, so they really could have put those 3 in the first one pack. Okay, each time I think I'm done with this video, I find something more out about the game. This game is on other platforms, but the site where they sent me this key only shows it as having a Switch version, and their website links me to the Switch version. I found it on PlayStation and Xbox, but not Steam. On these storefronts, they don't do the bundles or free DLC, which just confirms to me that they only do the DLC and bundles on the Switch storefront to take advantage of its eShop search functions. They deliberately divided up the content to take advantage of bundling and use their free DLC as advertisements. On the PS4 and Xbox versions, these free DLC are being charged $1 for. So they're making players on other platforms pay more for the game and its DLC. So when I said they're doing this on the eShop because they can't get away with it on other storefronts, it wasn't speculation or just me saying stuff. It's true. They literally only do it on the Switch because only the Switch allows them to do something like this. Anyway, let's talk about the actual game. Sunseed Island starts with a short story about a tree that gives life to these creatures that are like Care Bears. Each Care Bear-like creature is born with a Teletubby-like antenna with a Care Bear symbol that tells you what the job of the Care Bear is. For example, there's a shark dude called Sherry, who has a steering wheel on their head, and their job is to drive the boat. One with a hammerhead that's a cow called Doonin, and they're a blacksmith. A beaver with a log antenna called Loggin, who's a carpentry artist. Well, everyone born this way has a dedicated job, and they love doing it and are super appreciative of not having having to do bothersome things like thinking for themselves. They just do their assigned job and appreciate it. I'd rip on this, but with how hard it is to actually get hired these days, I'd really appreciate some assigned work. Anyway, the tree dies, and before it does, it spits out one more little freak. That's you. Your name is Perpy. Everyone else leaves their homeland, the island, and your job is unknown. But it's obvious that your job is to return the island to its former glory and bring back the tree's children. So rather than giving you a cool name like Doonin or Foonin, or a name that makes sense for your job like Login, or a name based on your species like Sherry, you're called Perpy, because you have purple spots. Such a heroic name. They should have just let us name ourselves. The Legend of Perpy doesn't exactly sell tickets. Anyway, we complete our job by attracting all of the Care Bear knockoffs back to the island and doing quests for them. You'll do this by collecting wood, money, and stone to build homes. Once Doonin and Login move in, you'll be able to turn wood and stone into planks and cut stone to build more shops, and an extension onto Doonins to attract Foonin, who will upgrade your weapons. Well, your tools. From here, you'll do a mix of quests for your townspeople and build new buildings to upgrade your tools and get access to more items. You're constantly doing this loop of collect new wood, new stone, building house, doing a quest on another island to attract the townsperson, then doing another quest for them to unlock new features in the shop, upgrade, and then repeat. You'll complete the quest by collecting items through farming, foraging, fishing, and collecting wood and stone. The characters all have a lot of dialogue for their quests, which is an interesting choice when the game has a lot of typos. They even have typos for words they made up, like, how are you going to misspell the fish Abysmal, whose name you made? Like, there's a quest where they ask you to get Abysmals, and they spell it Abysmal. How are you going to misspell that? You made the name. The dialogue is also handled in a weird way. When it's too large for one box, rather than doing multiple boxes, they shrink the text. There are also multiple misspelled items and descriptions, and some that are just missing a letter. And there are even some minor issues like pathing not being lined up correctly, like this was done in a rush job. But the typos is so avoidable. Your computer comes with spell check built in. Farming is your usual farming game, so if you're tired of every cozy game having the same farming game, then don't expect anything new here. You'll till the soil, put in a seed, then water it, and you'll often be stuck waiting on crops to be finished to progress quests, because they take so much longer than anything else. So you'll wake up, water everything, wait for the clock to hit noon, then go back to sleep and repeat the process. About half the game was this process. If I wasn't waiting for logs and stone to be processed, I was waiting for plants to grow. The game says in the beginning to take your time and do things at your own pace, but there isn't anything to do outside of the quests. Once you've collected the wood and stone you need to build a building and upgrade your tools, then there's nothing else you can do with it. You could earn money, but if you built all the available things for your current material level, or don't have any animals left to buy, then you have nothing to spend your money on. So taking your time is just going to lead to boredom, and feels like it's something to cover the devs' cheeks for when people realize that the game is incredibly short and has nothing to do but quests. Making your game entirely quests would be fine for something like an RPG or something like that, but this is a cozy game or a homesteading game. These games are about the freedom and the relationships you build, and there's no relationship building and there's no freedom. Farming also takes way too much stamina. You can't till, plant, and water your very small field in one day. At the start, at least, you need to eat foraged foods. Even after upgrades, you still can't till, seed, and water an entire field. You can still water an entire field, but by this point, you probably just have so much food that you can eat food and get through it that way. But crops often take more than a week to grow, which means when you get to the point that you're farming just to finish quests, you'll be watering then sleeping for up to 2 in-game weeks. Collecting materials is pretty simple. You'll play Minecraft. You go up to a tree and hit it, then hit rocks. Each island has a different stone and tree type that you'll collect from the most recent, build your building and tools, and then never go back to it until you get to the community center point, and then you won't even use the materials you get from it. You can't progress the game without processing wood and stone into cut versions, so a not insignificant portion of your time is spent waiting on logs and stone to be processed. Some days when I couldn't progress without processed materials, I would just sit there and watch as the logs were being slowly made. Thankfully, the world's clock pauses when watching them. Foraging on the islands is just collecting shells on the beach that you can sell, chests with money, and food you can eat. Weirdly, it costs energy to grab chests and pick up shells, but it doesn't cost anything to pick up mushrooms or eat berries. You can make meals, but outside of quests, you won't use it because it's easier to eat the massive amount of mushrooms on the islands that you've been hoarding. Fishing in Sunseed Island is genuinely atrocious. It's terrible. Easily the worst fishing minigame I played. You throw out the bottom bobber, wait for a bite, then a bar shows up. The bar indicates how long until the fish gets away, so press A as soon as it shows, don't wait for it to fill. Then the minigame starts. You have a zone where the success meter builds when it's over the fish. When the fish leaves the highlighted zone, the meter drops rapidly. That's when you tap A to move the highlighted section along the bar, but there isn't a way to move it back to the left, unless you just wait. So you have to be very careful not to over tap, but also not take too long to get to where the fish is. The meter drops faster when you're not on the fish than when you are. Fishing is free, and you might feel like doing it in the beginning, but you'll quickly drop it when you realize how terrible it is. You actually won't be fishing until you get several upgrades and go back, and it'll be a lot easier to enjoy then. But even the hitboxes on the fish are incredibly small. You'll fail fishing minigames when you clearly see the highlight sitting on top of the fish. I think the game dev knows how bad it is because no one gives you fishing quests until you're at the halfway point, and the fish aren't used in anything until the very end for the community center. Almost no one asks you for a fish. The quest menu kind of sucks because the view moves down when you move the cursor down, making it so it obscures quest names, so you can't really see what you're on. Once you've finished all the quests for a given NPC, they give you a doll version of themselves. Then you can never talk to them again. So I hope you don't have any favorites. I think this was done so that they didn't have to write more dialogue or come up with small talk. There's even a quest that uses the same dialogue twice, which only confirms that for me. The fish person will ask you to make pumpkin stew for them. Then when they move in, they ask for pumpkin stew again. But you check the quest log, and it shows instead the veggie burger that's misspelled. The NPCs also only talk about their quests. There isn't any character to these characters. You can't get married, which is fine, or build relationships. The items are bare minimum. The mechanics are bare minimum. The dialogue is bare minimum. Everything you do only exists to fulfill these requests and the community center. There is no freedom because there isn't anything to do outside of these quests. There is, of course, a community center. It's like the museum in Animal Crossing. You'll collect rare items and put them in the community center. It's just another way to artificially lengthen the game by giving you a checklist. This game would be over at 8 hours if you didn't have the community center. Instead, it takes 12. Other than that, the game doesn't explain how to play the game to you outside of its in-game manual, but you can also figure it out for yourself. The entire game is build, building, do quest. The interesting thing about the manual is some of the information is just wrong. It feels almost like AI, but I don't want to accuse them of that. For example, the text for wood. Some are easy to find and chop down, while others are rarer and more difficult. The rarer the tree, the harder it'll be to chop. So what can you do to tackle these challenges? Trees aren't harder to cut. They can only be cut with an appropriately leveled axe. Some trees aren't more rare, other than the striped wood that's on the beginning island, and that's it. It's just that some of this text doesn't sound like it was written by someone who knows how the game works. Then it talks about upgrading stuff. It kind of feels like maybe the guide was written before the game was finished because it seems like they wanted more variety in trees, like they wanted to do more with the game but finished it early. But in the rock and ore section, it says that they can be turned into ingots and cut gems. While the rocks are labeled with names from minerals and gems, none of them actually look like gems. They are all the same stone icon. They couldn't be bothered to draw a gem or ingot shape. This game is very rushed, which makes me think more that it's a cash grab for cozy gamers. The game feels like someone wanted to make a cozy game to piggyback on the trend as they didn't match the size of these games. This is like a speedrun version of developing a cozy game. Like I'm going to see a video in my feed soon that says, I made a cozy game in a month, and it's this. So many corners are cut. It's lacking on content. You do the same thing every day. Icons are reused. Stuff is misspelled. There is misinformation in the manual that's supposed to teach you how to play, and it all reads like weird, like every now and then the sea will wash up useful items along the shore. Since they belong to no one, you are free to collect them and sell them for your own profit. That sounds so robotic, and the part where it says, since they belong to no one, it sounds like they wrote one sentence and asked ChatGPT to lengthen it. Like the resources washed up by the sea, mushrooms can be collected and sold. I think a person would write, like seashells, mushrooms can be sold. Like both are correct, but the first one definitely sounds like they asked AI to lengthen it. It's way too verbose for a simple concept. There's not really much of an ending. Once you beat the game, that's kind of it. You're just back to where you were. Again, I think they said that they want you to take your time, maybe in hopes that you'll get bored and leave it unfinished before you realize just how lacking it is. Regardless, you'll be taking your time the entire last 2 hours of the game. I think just because the game stays the same throughout, the big reason that they don't put this on Steam is because they know people will refund it in the first 2 hours. Regardless, you'll be taking your time throughout the game anyway, because the entire last 2 hours of gameplay was spent for waiting for plants to grow so I could make all the foods needed to complete the community center. Yep, the Nimzy, the great and powerful powerful Nimzy, Emperor Nimzy, the one who is known for not finishing most games, took the time to finish this one. It took me 8 hours to finish all the quests and get all the community members, but it took almost 12 hours to finish the community center. My reward for a job well done? A cutscene. So that's nice at least. But after that, nothing changes. The entire game, gameplay, and goals are filling the community center and doing quests. Once you've done that, there is nothing left. It's fine that it has an end, but I would like to feel like there was a point to my continued existence in the world. Like, just let me talk to people even after the fact. Overall, if this is the devs' first game, it's a decent first try, but it doesn't really match the expectation of what the average gamer, let alone cozy gamers, would expect from a game in this genre. Your unwillingness to put the game on Steam and other platforms is really a big red flag. If I was buying this game and I saw that, then I wouldn't have bought it. I can't recommend this to anyone, because if you played a cozy game, then you're going to get bored of this game because it doesn't do anything different. If you haven't played many cozy games, then I'd recommend one of the much more polished games like Harvest Moon, Animal Crossing, and the like. But if those were too expensive, I'd recommend Stardew, which has gone on many sales, or My Time At series, and has a much more enjoyable experience that isn't just doing checklists. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed another installment of 100 games in 2025. This was a long one, a benefit of having reviewed some of these already. Remember to tip your Overlord with likes, subs, and the carcasses of the many friends I've been forced to eat. Bye.